Hello and welcome. You are watching Destination Draft Day, your one and only place to get all things college football, NFL draft, and NFL talk. Nick Durst here, Michael Rochman, myself. We are looking forward to sharing a wonderful Friday with you here on stream. If you have any questions, any comments, make sure to ask, and we will definitely try to answer them to the best of our ability. Can't promise it'll always be the top-notch expertise. We're just a couple of knuckleheads, no idea what we're talking about. But we really appreciate everyone that's interacting with the show. We appreciate everyone that's just tuning into view, and we hope that you guys enjoy this episode. Big weekend of college football ahead. Plenty of games. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the big weekend of pro football that's coming up. We'll talk a little bit about the Jags and Bengals. But first and foremost, Nick Durst, how you doing?
Listen, Michael, don't sell us short here, because more times than not, we get it right. We know what we're talking about, so we're not really knuckleheads. It's going to be a great weekend of sports. You get the wild card races wrap up in MLB for the Mariners to get in, and the Blue Jays. We'll see what happens. Football wise, you're gonna see some familiar trends this weekend. The Giants will lose, the Jets will lose. Got the huge game, Bucs Patriots, and we got a really nice slate of college football games. And everything kicked off last night with the Bengals and the Jaguars. From this game, my takeaway is I think it's time to show a little more faith if you're the offensive play caller for the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. He's not making mistakes, so let him throw the ball 30 times a game. Let's see what happens. And listen, Joe Burrow, he's been tremendous so far this season. Bengals fans got to be thrilled with the start for the season for the Bengals, and really have to be happy with what Joe Burrow's been able to do here in his second year and coming off that gruesome injury last year.
Yeah, absolutely great start for Joe Burrow. Really sad to see DJ Chark go down for the Jaguars as early as he did. Fractured his ankle, most likely going to be out for the season. I think that hurts a lot just because I thought he was in for a big year. Really like his receiving ability. Think he's a little bit underrated as far as wide receivers in the NFL. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence looked good. I think this is a promising game for both sides. The Bengals able to kind of answer back when they were down so early, and I think that's huge because for a team that's so young, you want to see that type of resilience to really come back into games. And I understand the Jaguars aren't world beaters. This isn't some amazing contender that you should have easily beaten them. But obviously, it was a close one. But it's good that they came back. It's good that they worked their way into winning this game, and I think that's a huge sign of momentum. Thursday night football is always a little bit wacky, so I wouldn't have been shocked if the Jaguars are able to come in and take the victory. But the fact that the Bengals were able to get back in that game, get control of it, and really work themselves back into that number one or into that winning spot, absolutely huge. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future for Cincinnati this year.
No doubt about it. It's going to be interesting to see how long they could stick around in the North. It's not going to be an easy task this weekend for the Ravens taking on the Broncos. The Steelers are coming off obviously loss to the Bengals. They're playing the Packers, so it's a possibility that you could be looking at the second place Bengals by themselves come the end of this weekend. But we'll get to NFL shortly. Got some really great college football games coming up this weekend as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's absolutely necessary we talk about it. Not just these three games, but there are numerous ones to talk about. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about these three. First one on the agenda, Georgia versus Arkansas. A tremendous performance by Arkansas last week to upset Texas A&M and really establish themselves as one of the better teams in college football. 8-seed Arkansas, 2-seed Georgia. Huge game. In this game, I think this is one that's going to be a really battle on the ground. Georgia has a tremendous running back stable of Zamir White, James Cook. They have some other guys. Kenny McIntosh is in that back. Milton. I mean, they just have numerous guys that can run the ball extremely well. And then on the other side, you look around at what Arkansas brings, and Traylon Smith is really tremendous in what he's done so far this year. I think that overall, a lot of people are going to be leaning Georgia in this one. I think the point spread was like 14, and I think that's a little bit too much. I do think that Georgia pulls this one out, but I think this is a huge opportunity for Arkansas to prove themselves as a legitimate team. I think they already have proven that, and I think this game is going to really come down to the wire. There is so much on the line for both sides, but I think there's just so much talent on both sides that this one's going to stay close. This one's going to be one that never really becomes an easy tell for which side's going to win. Players to watch in this one. JT Daniels at quarterback really has to take that next step as a QB if he wants to really elevate his stock as a prospect. Somewhat of a game manager at Georgia. I think there's a little bit of issues in terms of his just overall natural talent, and that kind of holds him back as a prospect. In this game, going against an Arkansas defense that has tremendous pieces all over the unit, he needs to really open up this offense. They can probably win this game just strictly on the ground because of how talented they are and the running back stable. But if JT Daniels can help open this offense up, absolutely huge for the Bulldogs and really will give them a sign of confidence as this game goes on and, for the future of what this season has in store for Georgia. Another player to watch, Lewis Seen, safety for Georgia, kind of a versatile, more of a strong safety type in my mind, but still can play both spots, really runs around the field, lays some major hits down. Him and Catalone are in for big games in terms of secondary work. I do think that the run game is going to be huge, but you cannot give up the big plays, and that's really what is going to come down to these safeties. And Seen, Catalone, both are very talented safeties. Seen more of a strong safety, Catalone more of a free safety, but both of which are in for huge games where they need to be reliable blankets of this defense that really don't let any big plays break, or else their team is in trouble. Next game to keep an eye on, and it feels like we have Notre Dame up here every week, but it's Cincinnati versus Notre Dame, a huge matchup between the Bearcats and the Fighting Irish. This is going to be a game that I think really tells us a lot about either team. The favorite is on Notre Dame right now. The odds lean in their favor. I believe it's, according to ESPN, 58% to 42%. Cincinnati, though, is ranked higher in the overall rankings. Desmond Ritter versus Jack Cohn, Jerome Ford versus Kyron Williams. There's a lot of storylines in this one. I think the big player to watch on Cincinnati's side is Desmond Ritter. Can he elevate this offense to beat this Notre Dame defense that has really kind of held their games in check? And then on the other side, Avery Davis at wide receiver for Notre Dame, I think is in for a big game. This matchup, Ahmad Gardner, Kobe Bryant. I don't know who's going to be on Davis. He's kind of in the inside type, but they don't run a lot of wide receiver sets that have him necessarily just sitting in the slot. He'll be guarded by some very talented corners in this game, and if he can put up a big performance, I think that'll be good for his stock and good for his standing in this draft class. And the last player to watch is Kyle Hamilton. Like I said earlier in the offseason, this is probably my number one player of the class, and I think this is a huge game for him, whether it's slowing down the run of Jerome Ford or whether it's keeping Desmond Ritter in that backfield kind of hemmed in. Absolutely huge game for him. I think this is someone that's probably going to be a top 10 pick when the draft comes, even with the safety kind of stock value always being a little bit lower. I think Kyle Hamilton is well worth the investment. So, Kyle Hamilton, while he's probably going to be a top pick, I think this is a very nice chance to kind of establish himself as the top or one of the top talents in this class. And in the final game, the 12 ranked team versus the number 1 ranked team, Ole Miss versus Alabama. Lane Kiffin facing off against his former school where he was offensive coordinator under Nick Saban. I think this is going to be a very fun game. I think that if Matt Corral can get going, and he's one of the players to watch, then this is going to be a high-scoring affair. We know Bryce Young is going to get things going on the other side. Alabama obviously has plenty of firepower. But, this last game for the Crimson Tide kind of showed that maybe they aren't unbeatable. Well, I mean, not last game, but last game in the SEC where they played Florida, only won 31-29. Yes, they got control early. It didn't seem like they were ever going to lose that one. But nothing is guaranteed here. And Matt Corral is going to be able to make some great plays in the passing game. Jerrion Ealy is a great running back. And another player to watch is Dontario Drummond, wide receiver for Ole Miss. He's really become the go-to guy for Matt Corral. Elijah Moore went off to the NFL. Corral searching for that new number one target. Dontario Drummond has filled into that spot extremely well. And this Ole Miss offense has really gotten going. This is going to be a good one. On the Alabama side, the player I'm looking forward to watching is Henryto, the linebacker that came from Tennessee and has really kind of become a star player in this defense. Whether it's hemming in Jerry and Ely, whether it's keeping Matt Corral in the pocket, whether it's taking away the inside short game and passing. This is a huge test. And, Alabama has two very good linebackers, obviously Henryto and Christian Harris, both very talented. They have some edge rushers, Will Anderson, that is going to probably be a top 10 pick next year. There's just plenty of pieces, but I'm really excited to see this offensive matchup, and I think this is going to be a really great game. Personally, I probably take Alabama in this one. I think we're going to see some very promising signs from Ole Miss that prove that they belong in this top 25.
This is a good slate here. I think Arkansas actually has a chance to beat Georgia. But either way, those are two teams there in the top 8. So I'm wondering, whoever wins Cincinnati or Notre Dame, are they going to jump up in the standings there? Because one of those two teams from the other game is going to slip. And I think if Cincinnati wins, maybe they jump a little more. Notre Dame, they probably don't jump up as much because they'll discredit Cincinnati, which they shouldn't, but that's a huge game there. Ole Miss, they've been, they're in the right direction here, but they can't compete with Alabama. The difference is too much there. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the winner of Cincinnati and Notre Dame, where they end up next week in the rankings.
Yeah, and there's plenty of huge games this weekend as well. Kansas State versus Oklahoma is one that really catches my eye because Kansas State upset the Sooners last year. Skylar Thompson, though, may not be able to play in this game, and that could definitely lean in Oklahoma's favor. Louisville versus Wake Forest should be a very big game, especially now with the ACC kind of wide open as it is. Florida, as a top 10 team in the country versus a 4-0 Kentucky team, I think is going to be a good one. Baylor versus Oklahoma State, both teams undefeated, both teams ranked, and they weren't able to make this cut. That just shows how good this weekend of games is. Indiana, Penn State, one of the most iconic games of last season. In the opening week of college football, Indiana was able to, make a win by really just like an inch of play, and that just was a phenomenal finish. I expect this one to have similar fireworks. LSU, Auburn, UCLA, Arizona State, and even tonight on Friday Night Football for college football, Maryland versus Iowa, two undefeated Big Ten teams. I've said on the show plenty of times I think Maryland's very underrated. This is going to be a very good game, and it wouldn't shock me if the Terrapins pull off an upset.
Yeah, and let's give a little shout out to the Eagles of Boston College playing Clemson tomorrow. They can get a big win over Clemson. They're going to see themselves in the top 25, and they got as good a chance as anybody looking out to win the ACC.
Absolutely. And, Clemson, if they can bounce back, then it's a good place to start going against Boston College. But who knows? They need to figure something out quickly if they plan on making a decent season here, because this has been a very ugly start.
Yeah, certainly not great. Not what Clemson is used to. They're not used to losing 2 games. So it's going to be tough there. And I wanted to touch real quickly on Coastal Carolina. Doing the same thing they did last year. They're up to 16 right now, playing LA Monroe. What do you think the ceiling is for this team this year? Is there a chance they could be playing on New Year's Day, or does that kind of depend on how Cincinnati finishes up the season?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a chance. I do think Cincinnati is probably going to hold on to that top non-Power 5 spot, automatic bid, but that doesn't necessarily keep Coastal out. And I think that they could very easily end up undefeated, where they're looking at a top 12, top 10 bid in college football. And with that, playing in a New Year's Day bowl, hopefully they'd get their chance against a Power 5 school, not like in a bowl game where they're like, okay, Cincinnati, Coastal Carolina, you guys go ahead and play each other. Really, I think Coastal Carolina has had a very good season. Obviously, Grayson McCall, one of the more impressive quarterbacks in college football, throwing at a extremely efficient rate. really making some great production here. I really like Coastal Carolina, and I think they're one of the best G5 teams in the country. And, in the grand scheme of things, I think they're definitely a top 15 school when it comes to just overall teams across college football. Oh, you're muted, Nick.
Yeah, I think without a doubt, you're definitely right. They're definitely building something good there, good culture. Just a matter of how much longer is their head coach going to be there before he's poached away by a bigger school.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think people are going to be calling. He has really just shown tremendous capabilities to really create one of a unique offense. And there's been talks, I think even as early as last year, that Jamie Chadwell will get hired away. And I think this year, assuming Coastal Carolina just continues on their path, we could very easily see him poached away and taken on somewhere else. And I couldn't blame him, jumping from Coastal Carolina to say, South Carolina or something like that. Definitely great opportunity there. And I'm not saying South Carolina is necessarily open. It's just it'll be some school like that where it's similar geographic area, especially in that southeast area. They want to know that it's someone that can find successful players there. And Chadwell has proven that already.
What do you think about Hugh Freeze? It's going to leave Liberty this year. I know last year we discussed on the show. Some school might give him a shot again, and we got some negative feedback in the comments section. But they both lost to Syracuse, but overall Liberty's been really solid the last few years.
Yeah, I think we'll see Hugh Freeze get another chance. I think Hugh Freeze to Nebraska makes a lot of sense if Scott Frost does get fired, because you kind of need someone that's going to elevate your program. And Nebraska is falling more and more by the day. If Scott Frost is sent out those doors, they need someone who is going to do that. And yes, I understand the concerns, the question marks that surround him. But if you're a program like Nebraska that has this history and you need a coach that is good and has proven to find success time and time again, Hugh Freeze seems like that guy. He was turning Ole Miss into a powerhouse, and then obviously things kind of fell off a little bit because of the firings and, recruitment issues. But with the NIL deal, I feel like a lot of these recruitment issues that have happened are going to kind of not be as much of an issue anymore, because you can reform your premise of how you recruit these people. And, with that, I think Hugh Freeze is going to find his way back up into the Power 5 world. And I'm thinking that he'll succeed. Now it just depends on where he lands.
And speaking of coach movement, obviously USC is going to be the big job, as we discussed before. I'm wondering if Luke Fickell from Cincinnati would take that job, or maybe he says, I'm building something good here. I'm going to go into the Big 12. Maybe I want to stay. Matt Campbell with Iowa State, I think he's going to get consideration for that. And I think he's going to be considered for a lot of NFL head coaching jobs this year, like he was last year. So interesting there. I mean, Iowa State has been really strong over the past few years. It's going to be interesting. And obviously, Chris Peterson has always been rumored to go to USC. Currently, he's retired, so that wouldn't be an issue. And then maybe Eric Bieniemy, if he can't get an NFL head coaching job, would take that. Problem with that is usually that the coaching searches for college are wrapped up much earlier than the NFL. But, Michael, right now the Chiefs are in last place, so perhaps that won't really be an issue. The Chiefs might not be playing too long this year.
Yeah, I think Chiefs will probably get it sorted out, but that USC job has to be one of the most appealing in college football. You look around at just overall environment to succeed. Los Angeles, huge program, huge history, and plenty of amazing facilities there at USC. Overall competition, yeah, UCLA is pretty good, but overall, you're not really having to overcome the slate that the SEC is. Oregon, UCLA, teams like that could very well be an issue as we get further down the line. I mean, Chip Kelly seems to be building something well. Oregon, obviously, one of the better programs in college football, but it's definitely a lot less of a hard workload to get there, to have your team in that playoff picture, have your team as one of the top teams in college football. And then there's just that whole California area that kind of, yeah, you're going against the nation whenever it comes to recruiting, but there's so much talent in California. If you're able to build a homeschool team that is going to dominate, then a lot of kids are going to grow up rooting for your school and want to play there when they're, becoming prospects, becoming recruits, and that's how you do it. And, for me, I think USC probably has to be at least a top 3 job in college football with everything considered. And, I think whoever gets this job has to really come in with that mindset like, hey, this can be the number 1 school in the country in terms of college football success if I do my job correctly. And I think, Luke Fickell's probably the best guy for that job if he's willing to take it. But who knows? I mean, I think this is a school that really is going to have a lot of options on the table, and it'll be interesting to see who ends up with that job.
Let's put a dark horse out there. Pete Carroll returns if the Seahawks don't make the playoffs. I think there's a chance they might blow it up, and I don't think he's going to want to wait around to rebuild an NFL franchise, but we shall see. But the Seahawks not looking as sharp as they usually do through the first quarter of the season.
Yeah. It would be tough to see that only because he's so old. Like, no offense, Pete Carroll.
70. What is he? 71.
He's pretty old. He probably would easily get it. Like if he got fired, USC would love to have him. But at 70, how long is he going to last in the whole career of trying to make it happen? You're probably looking at 5 years tops, where you're saying, okay, I can keep doing this. So
Mac Brown's 70.
Yeah, and Mac Brown, I mean, he's got a job, so maybe Pete Carroll would be the guy that they want, but it would also just be, probably they need to make sure that he has someone underneath him as the next in line to take over.
Yeah. Again, this is all dependent on obviously what happens to the Seahawks season. If Russell Wilson's traded, then I think they would probably want to do a clean refresh. Because if you're trading Russell Wilson, they're going to draft a quarterback. Unless they say, we'll take Daniel Jones or something like that. Just don't know if the same thing there. Pete Carroll, is he going to want to start with a new quarterback in the NFL at the age of 71? Perhaps not.
Yeah, I would love to see it just because I really do think that they have some, plenty of not untapped, but just plenty of potential to really get back into that powerhouse situation. And I think Pete Carroll would probably do that job quite well. Obviously has some experience and some history of doing well. So it'd be great to see.
I think they should hire Bill O'Brien. I think that's who USC should hire.
Yeah, he's very much on the table as well. I think there's plenty of opportunities. There's been talks about James Franklin from Penn State. There's been talk about Bill O'Brien. There's been talk about, just a lot of players around, a lot of people around college football. Fickell, there's been people trying to say, oh, should Lane Kiffin go back? I mean, that's not going to happen. But just there's plenty of opportunities.
Sarkisian. Bring Sarkisian back.
I don't know. He might stick around in Texas. There's a lot of hype going on for him now after this past 2 weeks. I think they're kind of righting the tide a little bit.
It's going to be tough roads ahead for the Longhorns. Unfortunately, I think that's the case. But let's move on to the NFL. We could talk about a bunch of different games, and some of the games are appealing and some aren't. I guess the first game, we can talk about here in the 1:00 slot is going to be the Panthers and the Cowboys, 2 first place teams here battling it out. I don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to play in this one. So I'm going to lean advantage Cowboys there, just because I know the Panthers put up some points last week without McCaffrey, but I think it's going to be tough without him for a full game. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think that the Cowboys win this one, but man, how much does the narrative grow for the Panthers if they are able to win this one and go to 4-0 without McCaffrey? And oh man, I think everyone in the country would be Matt Rule believers, and he'd probably be a far and away favorite for Coach of the Year. But right now, I think Cowboys win this one. I don't think that it's going to be a bad game. I think that we're going to see some solid play out of the Panthers. But with J.C. Horn out, with Christian McCaffrey out, the injuries kind of play into effect here. The Cowboys seem to be getting things going a little bit. So I think we're going to see a nice game from the Cowboys offensively to kind of give them that advantage to really take this game. And I'm leaning Dallas.
Yep, I'm in agreement with you there. Okay, the Chiefs and Andy Reid heading to Philadelphia. I think hard to believe, but I think I heard this is Andy Reid's first trip back to Philadelphia since losing his job with the Eagles. And I don't like what I've been seeing from the Chiefs, but the Eagles, I don't like anything I'm seeing from them. So I think the Chiefs are going to roll in this one in a big bounce back victory.
Yeah, and the Chiefs kind of need that. They need this game where they say, hey, let's get our head on straight. Let's get back into it. Let's become the dominant Chiefs that we always have been. Are they as dominant as they always have been? Who knows? I think there's some issues defensively. But overall, I think they control this game pretty easily, win by probably 2 scores. Right now, the spread's at 7 points, and I feel like I definitely lean Chiefs to cover in that situation. I think Mahomes is going to have a great game. And really, I'm interested to see if Josh Gordon gets on the active roster for this game and if he's able to contribute.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see if he's in there and how much he is going to be active in the game plan. All right, next game up, Davis Mills and the Texans heading to Buffalo. Definitely, again, we've liked what we saw from Davis Mills last week. If we were forced to put a rookie of the week and Rockham's rookie of the week from quarterback, it probably would have been him. But the Bills are just too much, especially at home. This is going to be a rout. Bills may put up 40 points on this game.
Yeah, I'm a little worried for what's going to happen to the Texans. I think that the Texans have definitely overaccomplished the season so far in terms of just how competitive they've been. But in a game like this where you have a high-powered team like the Bills and you have an offense that kind of lost their QB that now has, a defense that's kind of middling, but they have to go against this high-powered offense. It's going to be tough. A young QB going against one of the best defense and defensive minds in the NFL. Yeah, it's going to be an ugly game, I think. If they can keep it close, though, I think that's a big sign for Texans in terms of what they have in their future.
All right, we have a question here from Tony. Tony wants to know, how good is the Chiefs' defense? I mean, I think they have a great defensive coordinator in Spagnuolo, but so far this season, they have not looked as great as they have in years past.
Yeah, I think the big issue is they need to figure out the pass rush situation. Right now, with their future, I think that's going to be something that they need to hit on hard. Obviously, guys like Chris Jones on the interior of that defensive line are phenomenal, but really the overall pass rush just hasn't happened from the outside. The only defensive end to have a sack on this team is Mike Dana, and I'm pretty sure that he's not even the expected starter. I'm pretty sure the expected starters are Okafor and Clark. I think Clark, with everything that happened this offseason, is kind of a weird situation. Mike Dana is a young player that I think has some potential, but overall they need a little bit of a boost in talent and production in that area. And I think for the future of the Chiefs, that's something they need to address. Right now, though, they need to find ways to overcome that. And I'm interested to see what happens in that scenario because I think there's potential on this roster, but there's not really been a lot of great pressure provided by the outside of this Chiefs defensive line.
Agreed there. Okay, now next game we'll talk about is a must-win game for both teams. That is the Colts taking on the Miami Dolphins. It's the Jacoby Brissett revenge game here, showing the Colts what they gave up. This one is going to be interesting. I'm going to have to go with the Dolphins, though. 5 of the Colts starters are out in this game. Quentin Nelson's going to miss his first career game, and the Dolphins' defensive line is just a little too good for the Colts to withstand that attack there without Nelson.
Yeah, this is going to be probably the hardest game for me to decide who I think wins. I think the Colts have potential. I think the Dolphins still have a lot left in the tank, and that's going to make a tight ball game. But yeah, I lean Dolphins, I guess, as well. Really coin flip, and I'm almost changing my mind. But overall, I think that the Dolphins defense is going to really take advantage of all these injuries that's going on with the Colts offense, and for that reason, I think Jacoby Brissett's going to also get going a little bit. Maybe Jalen Waddle has a little bit of a breakout game. And, I think Dolphins take this one, but wouldn't surprise me at all if we're coming here Monday and talking about how the Colts beat the Dolphins and now both teams sit at 1-3. I think there's a lot of issues on both sides and a lot of, potential on both sides. So we'll see what happens this one and, what it means going forward.
Absolutely. Okay, next game is the Detroit Lions heading to Chicago to take on the Bears. This game is kind of tricky to pick just because we kind of think we know who's going to be playing quarterback for the Bears, but they're keeping it a game time decision. Again, I don't know how much of an advantage that really gives, the team, but apparently it's going to be either Foles or Andy Dalton starting with Justin Fields to play in the game. So, I mean, if Dalton's healthy, then I would guess he's going to play because I'm not going to bench him for Nick Foles. I don't know how this trio of quarterbacks is going to work here. If you got more than one quarterback, you don't have a quarterback. So I think the Lions actually are going to get their first win here in this one.
Yeah, I got the Lions in this one. This is a clown show in Chicago. Bears are completely ruining a good situation. They messed up already by getting rid of Charles Leno. It felt like an awful move. I mean, you should have had Tevin Jenkins on the right side, Leno at left tackle, and kept that. Jenkins, I think, has been hurt, so you can't really get mad at that move yet. But I do think that he would have been much better on the right side. His skill set projects best for that. The offensive line has been an issue. The play calling was absolutely abysmal. I understand that Justin Fields wasn't perfect, but this is your young QB, and you need to find ways to make it to where he can find early success as easy as possible, and they did not do that for him. For a long time, I kind of defended the Bears, and I was like, I like Ryan Pace. I think Matt Nagy's okay. I think Matt Nagy's awful now. I really do think that he is a terrible coach, and I think that they need to fire him if they want to make something out of Justin Fields. Look for Brian Daboll out of Buffalo and watch what he did with Josh Allen, how Josh Allen came into the league as this kind of raw, undeveloped prospect, and he was set up for success, set up with easy passes in an offense that had a terrible offensive line, lack of weapons, and they were still able to really capitalize on his overall athleticism and build just to make things simple for him and really watch as he built up that confidence. So, yeah, I hope the Bears hire Daboll this offseason, and I think Justin Fields could easily be saved. But right now with Nagy, I have very little hopes for Justin Fields right now just because of just how abysmal he has been as a head coach.
Makes Mitch Trubisky look a lot better now in hindsight to Bears fans. The guy went to the playoffs twice, so we'll see if he's starting again at some point. All right. The Browns are going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. I actually think this is going to be a really good game. Both of us have liked the Vikings all season long. Kirk Cousins has been absolutely tremendous. And, everything would tell you in this one, the Browns are the better team. They should win. I just think this game is going to be a lot closer than people are expecting. And I think the Vikings actually have a really good chance here to win this one and even up their record of 2-2 on the season. So maybe we're either going to be looking at the Bengals in first place by the end of Sunday.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because we've seen assistant coaches go to their former place and kind of either dominate or just get destroyed because they get found out. In this one, I'm leaning Browns, but I wouldn't be shocked to see the Vikings kind of say, look, this is our offense. Like you can't just think you're gonna get away with that and just not get completely exposed. So maybe this is a trap game for the Browns, and then they fall 2-2, and the sky's falling in Cleveland, even though they're probably still gonna win the division, yada yada. But ultimately, really good game for both sides. I think the Vikings probably need this one more, but I don't know. I clearly lean Browns in terms of just talent and teams, but maybe in this game, in any given Sunday type situation, the Vikings need a little bit more. That's all they need to really kind of get that edge in this matchup.
Certainly. All right, the Washington football team is heading to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Falcons coming off a big win last week, and Washington football team not looking too hot last week. I'm going to go with the Falcons in this one. They finally realized, okay, they can win a game. It was a close game. They stuck with it. Their defense played really well. If their offense could start showing up here this season, they'll get back to the ways of the Falcons where they score a lot of points. So I think the Falcons are going to win this game. I think they will win it somewhere around the score of like 27-14, 27-17, something like that.
Personally, I think the Washington football team wins this one. I just don't like the Falcons. I think they are a very bad team. They got the win against the Giants, but I feel like it didn't even look good. It just felt like they kind of fell forward into a W. So in this one, I think Washington, yeah, they have their issues as well, but I think they will really cause chaos on Matt Ryan all game, and then the offense will do enough, and it'll be like a 24-13 victory or something like that.
All right. Next to the Giants. Giants are playing the Saints. Sterling Shepard and Slayton are supposed to be out in this one. So maybe Michael, Kadarius Toney, who they spent the first-round pick on for no reason instead of an offensive lineman, can get involved somehow in this game. Saints coming off a big win against the Patriots. This is their first game at home this season in New Orleans. The Saints are going to win this one, probably by at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I lean in favor of the Saints, but I do think that the Giants have a chance in this one just because of the sporadic play of Jameis Winston. If they are able to capitalize on a turnover or kind of keep the game hemmed in, then I really think that the Giants could potentially have one of those wacky wins, and then things start looking up in New York. Things are kind of questionable in New Orleans. I lean Saints, but man, I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be like a game where either the Saints are in trouble and then they kind of field goal at the very end to win it, or it's a situation where maybe even the Giants kind of get like a nice lead and everyone's just saying, man, is New Orleans really going to be this Jekyll and Hyde team all year long?
Yeah, I could see something like that, but I just ultimately I have no faith right now in the Giants to get a win.
Just keeping yourself protected. I get it.
Tony says, can Kenny earn just one gala on Sunday? Is the Saints defense going to be tough for Danny Dimes to navigate? I don't know. Kenny Galladay and Jones and Garrett are not on the same page. Jones hasn't turned the ball over the last 2 weeks, so he's certainly due for a turnover. I don't really think the Saints defense is that great. But, I think it's going to be a tough day for Daniel Jones without his top 2 targets in Slayton and Shepard. Might cause him to throw the ball to Engram a little more, and Engram is known for dropping the ball quite often. From one horrible football team to the other, the Jets are hosting the Titans. Julio Jones and A.J. Brown are both out, but how do you still not pick the Titans in this one? They'll let Derrick Henry run the ball a ton. He might run for 200 yards in this one. I think the Titans win this game by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, I think Titans control this one pretty easily. I understand the concern with Julio and A.J. Brown both out, but it doesn't matter. I mean, that as rude as it may sound to the Jets, as disrespectful as it is, it doesn't matter. I think Nick Westbrook, the kind of 4th wide receiver in line, I think Chester Rogers is number 3. I think Westbrook is going to be the guy to kind of have a nice game in this one. Kind of had a nice performance last week that I think kind of puts him with the momentum going forward. Derrick Henry is going to absolutely dominate. Maybe the Jets can have a little bit of success with their secondary, but ultimately, I think the most important thing for the Jets here is to just kind of keep things simple, kind of make sure Zach Wilson doesn't completely have his head fall off in this one, and just get out of there, only losing by 2 touchdowns or something, so you can at least call it a game.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Jets fan, you just want to see Zach Wilson be able to stay on his feet, not throw interceptions, and let him, do what he does best, which is maybe use his legs a little bit because it's rough. It's a rough watch right now. All right, so the 4:00 games. We'll start with the NFC West. Seahawks heading to 49ers. Of course, the 49ers come off a heartbreaking loss in Sunday Night Football to the Packers. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I think there is plenty of intrigue in this game. I think there is really just big matchups overall for what the Seahawks and 49ers offer in this game. I think this is big for Jimmy Garoppolo to kind of keep his spot in the offense, keep it going. He had a nice game last week in what kind of fell apart at the 37-second mark, whatever. But, can the Seahawks get back in this picture? And I know that it won't be easy, but the Seahawks do have some firepower on offense. And, if they win this one, they're 1 game behind second place. And if the 49ers lose, it's the same case. But really, it's going to be interesting because Cardinals play Rams, Seahawks play 49ers. Both games are going to be tight ones to watch and should tell us a little bit in terms of clarity for what the division is going to look like, because this is definitely probably the most talented division in the NFL. I think you're muted again.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting matchup there. I think I'll lean Seahawks very slightly in here. I think the loss for the 49ers last week was just a little too crushing. The next game is the Cardinals and the Rams. Rams come off a huge victory. This is a battle for first place. Both teams 3-0. Give me the Cardinals in this one. I don't see any shot with them losing this game. Murray's going to be too much for the Rams to handle, and Aaron Donald's great, but if he can't even get to Kyler Murray because of his capability, it doesn't really matter. I think the Cardinals make a huge statement and win this game.
That's interesting. I lean Rams in this one. I think we're going to see this team continue to ride hot. I think right now Matthew Stafford is considered the favorite for the MVP. Whether that lasts or not, who knows? But both these guys, Murray and Stafford, are in for huge games, I think. And it will be one with offense firepower. But I think the Rams defense is going to be able to contain the Cardinals offense a little bit. And that will be enough for the Rams to walk away with a victory.
Okay, now to the Packers hosting the Steelers. Packers are going to win this game. Steelers going to be off to a rough 1-3 start. They look old. They look immobile. Defense is struggling, but TJ Watt's out, so he's a huge difference maker. Packers continue to, roll here, bouncing back from that first week loss. They're going to easily win the NFC North this year. Packers will defeat the Steelers in Green Bay.
Yeah, there's little hope for the Steelers in this one, I feel like. And I know that's kind of the consensus opinion, but it just feels like this is not going to be a good game at all. Steelers offense has looked unproductive as it gets. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's getting back into his old self. Aaron Jones is an absolute stud. Devontae Adams is an absolute stud. I think 6.5 points is crazy for a spread because I think it's going to be even bigger. I think we're looking at double-digit win by the Packers, probably one that's almost sitting in that 35-13 type range, and then we see Jordan Love in this one.
Ooh, Jordan Love. Second time getting some action this year. All right. Next game is going to be your Broncos versus the Ravens. And the Broncos have been rolling so far. Maybe some of that has to do with an easy schedule. It's going to be the toughest matchup for Denver yet. I think the Ravens will be able to win this one.
Yeah, I got Ravens as well. I think Broncos are off to a good start, and that's exactly what they need to do. But I think the Ravens are still a very good team. I think they're going to get things figured out a little bit offensively. Denver can come back next week and beat the Steelers, but right now I think this is a loss for them. 3-1, still a very good start, and I look forward to seeing what they can do going forward. But right now, I think Ravens control this one. I'm surprised even that that the Broncos are the favorites in that one, just because I would think that they would still kind of lean Ravens just because of the history of how good they've been in past years.
Yeah, I could definitely with you on that one for sure. Monday night, of course, will be the other big AFC West matchup, the Raiders and Chargers. We'll get to that on Monday. But last game here, it's the big one that everyone's waiting for. NBC has been using some great music for promos, Adele and Eminem. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Tom Brady is going back to play the Bucs," but nobody's saying anything about Antonio Brown or Rob Gronkowski making their returns. I think Gronkowski's going to play a huge factor in this game.
He's doubtful
what happened
right
when
now.
he went out in early. If he plays, yeah, I know they need to get him in there because when he got hurt last week, that was really it for the game. Take it out of the account where he had 4 touchdowns going into that game. People don't realize this is the greatest blocking tight end of all time. The things he's able to do to give Brady more time is crucial. So it's very difficult, very challenging there. I mean, Brady struggled in that the year without Gronkowski. So he plays a major impact. But overall, I think the Buccaneers are going to win in this one, and I think it might be closer than expected, but overall, it's not going to be that close.
Yeah, I have low hopes for this one. I think the Patriots' offense is still very one-dimensional, sort of. It's not opened up yet, and I understand that. As a Patriots fan, I'm not losing my mind about the fact that they're throwing short against these defenses, but there's no way that Mac Jones is going to come in and just tear up this Buccaneers defense. That's just going to take away everything underneath, take away all the run game, and that's going to cause some issues, and it'll be a blowout. Brady's going to have his, revenge and be one of 4 QBs to win in every against every team in the NFL over his career. But hopefully, I'm just hoping that the Patriots show some life on offense, maybe make a couple deep ball passes that look good. But ultimately, I'm expecting a 38-13 game. I'm not expecting anything close.
Yeah, I agree. I really hope Gronkowski gets to play. I think it would just be tremendous to see him get the recommendation. Get the round of applause he deserves. It's best for business if Gronkowski plays. It's better for the game, better for all of us. But we are in agreement there. I think it's going to be interesting. You Patriots fans, nothing gets you guys pumped up more than when Brady runs out of the tunnel and does the "let's go." I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think Brady's going to get cheered when he comes out early. When the Patriots are down by 14, that would be the case. Gardoful wants to see Brady and Belichick exchange jerseys. So I guess Belichick would get the Brady jersey and Brady would get the sweatshirt with the sleeves cut off. But it's interesting. I mean, Tom Brady, they said this. Everyone says it's bad blood. He says there isn't. And then Belichick, I think today said there's no quarterback I'd rather have than Brady. Hindsight's 2020. I wonder now if Belichick is thinking, maybe I should have held on to Brady a little longer. We could have won a few more Super Bowls together.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of sadness about it, but happens now. I'm sure they'll shake hands after the game, and everyone will be hoping that they don't, but they will. They'll say, congratulations, good work, and, I'll hopefully see you later in the season. Probably won't, but, I mean, that's just something that they'll say, and then they'll go on their ways. For Gronk, I think that's the most interesting thing. Obviously, this is a huge game for personal reason. He wants to go play New England, play his former team, play in Foxborough in front of the fans, play and probably score against Bill. That'd be huge for him. But ultimately, it's kind of one of those things where the Bucs have bigger things on their agenda, so it's going to be tough to really reasonably play him unless you absolutely know that he's fine. And right now it doesn't look that way. I wouldn't be surprised though if they say he's active and then just give him a few snaps so that he can go and play against the Patriots. But we'll see. Ultimately though, yeah, I'm expecting a blowout for the Bucs.
I think that's a good strategy with Gronk. At least have him active, get him out there for the first drive, throw a pass. It'll really get the Buccaneers players like hyped up. I think he's been tremendous this year. And last week that was kind of the point of no return for the Bucs in the comeback. But you're right, the Bucs got bigger goals in mind here, and now they got to keep pace with the winner of the Rams Cardinals game and the Packers here to get that 1 seed in the NFC.
Absolutely. And we look forward to seeing what happens for this entire week of college football and NFL. We'll be back here on Monday to talk about all of it, talk about Rochman's Rookies of the Week, and also, some risers in this draft process. May have a mock coming at you. I'm not 100% certain if it was this week or next week that I was planning on doing. But we're looking forward to it, and I hope all you guys have a great weekend of football or anything else on your agenda. For me and Nick Durst here at Destination Draft Day, it's a long road to the draft, but we'll get you there. Take care and have a great weekend.